Oh, hi. Okay, so conspiracy theory. That got your attention, didn't it? It's like, we don't need another conspiracy theory. Oh my God. There's so many of them going on right now as there it is. Just give us facts. You're on social media. You don't want facts. You want something goofy and strange. So let's talk goofy and strange. So at the moment, I believe we can all agree at this point, unless you're just mentally deficient or, something like that, who knows. But I think we can all agree at this point that it's going to take a complete and total, utter miracle for Joe Biden to win the election come November, if he's even still around. All right, so let me pause here for a moment. Let's just assume, and I know this is far-fetched, but let's just assume that the election coming up and the election that we had back in 2020 is going to be, completely fair, completely legal, and completely above board. I know it's a fantasy world, but let's just imagine for a moment that it is, okay? So, with that in mind, if it is completely fair and above board and all that kind of good jazz, it's still going to take a complete and utter miracle for Joe Biden to even be here come election time, much less win the election. I mean, that's just a common sense thing at this point. That's take everything else out of the equation. That's just common sense at this point, because Joe is so far down in the polls. I mean, geez, he's so far down in the polls right now. Most people would vote for this jar of peanuts over Joe Biden, if you have common sense, that is. So it's going to take a miracle for him. But miracles do exist, and let me explain. There's this thing called the sympathy vote. Okay, and if you don't know what that is, that's where the party or whoever involved is going to get a vote just, out of sheer fact that they feel sorry for the candidate. Let's say, his wife dies and they feel bad for him. They're like, something like that. But there's a sympathy vote for the Democrat Party that is sitting out there, and it's ready to be made at any moment. Now, let's say for whatever reason that Joe goes on to meet his maker before November, and they install somebody else. We'll say, for the sake of argument, that Lizard King out there in California, Gavin Newsom, and pick a running mate. It doesn't matter who, just pick one. But let's say they're going to slip Gavin Newsom in there in Joe Biden's deceased, vacancy. And the party starts saying things like, well, Joe had it so bad. I mean, we already knew his health was declining, and we were just trying to, give him the benefit of the doubt through all this point. Everybody knew his health was declining. His mental state was declining. Look at what was going on with his family. He's got a son that died, Hunter was going through so much pain and turmoil with the court system, being convicted of these heinous crimes that nobody else would be convicted of. And this other court date about tax evasion, not paying taxes and things like that. It was just too much for poor Joe Biden. And he just couldn't take it anymore, and he gave up the ghost. Now you garnered sympathy. And with weak-minded individuals, high IQ, weak-minded individuals, that's enough to garner a sympathy vote. Hell, they'll be saying things like, but he loved puppies. Oh, what have you. It's possible. Now, before you get all bent out of shape and going off the rails and, calling me all kinds of names, which is fine. I don't care. Call me whatever you want to. I don't give a shit. And saying things like, you shouldn't say anything like that. As sick and twisted as I am, you've got to understand, in these political parties, Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on, those people are much more sick and twisted than I ever will be. And if you think for one moment that theory is not being floated across a table in some think tank somewhere, in D.C., Virginia, New Jersey, New York City, if you think that this theory is not being floated, you're crazy. I will bet you any amount of money you want to that this is not being played with somewhere. What's going to happen if and when possibly Joe dies before the election? I mean, hell, he's 80 years old. If you saw the Normandy whatever memorial, the D-Day memorial, Some of those guys in the audience behind him looked in better shape than he did. If you saw the Juneteenth celebration and Weekend at Bernie's didn't come to mind, I mean, come on, people. It's something to think about. Hey, you do the math. Tell me I'm wrong, call me names, whatever you want to. I don't care. But think about it. Talk about it. What do you think? Is it a possibility? And if you think for a moment it's not, argue with me. Tell me I'm wrong. You decide.